Hey book lovers, Kaylee here, welcome back to the Enchanted Library. And I haven't done one of these before, so I'm gonna see how this goes, and it might be a way that I can nicely wrap everything up. Hence, I guess, why it's called a wrap-up. So I'm going to be talking to you guys about my most recent reads, and that is going to be from March and April this year. And I do just want to say April was a bit of a slow month for me for reading because I was also focusing on Camp NaNoWriMo, but now I'm getting back into the swing of things for the start of May. And yeah, in no particular order, I'll go through these books and let you know my rating for it, I guess, on the Goodreads scale. And I will say, if you do want to know more about my thoughts on these books, I am going to try and keep everything up to date on my Goodreads, so go ahead and click the link in the description and add me as a friend. The first book that I picked up here is Ever the Hunted, and that is by Erin Summerill. I ended up picking up book 1 and book 2 at the exact same time because I wanted to make sure that there was no chance in a cover change because these covers are beautiful. And this book did not take me very long to read. I read it in about a sitting, and it was an easy read, but it was a fun little adventure for YA. Basically, it follows a girl whose father was murdered, and she's sort of left to fend for herself. But she gets enlisted by the king to help find the man who murdered her father, and it is believed to have been her best friend from childhood who she hasn't seen for a few years. And it's a lot of introspection in this book for her, and for about the last third of the book it sort of changes the game. So you're going into it with one type of adventure and you're ending on a totally different type of adventure with a whole different set of things that are going to be happening in the next book. So I'm very excited to read the next book, which is Ever the Brave. And I did end up giving this a 3.5 stars out of 5. I know Goodreads just does whole stars, but I'm gonna add an addendum to that. And I think it's just really because I enjoyed the book, but it didn't completely blow me away. Like, I'm pretty stingy with my 5-star ratings and somewhat with my 4-star, but I will get into that in a little bit more because I do have some 4 and 5 stars in this list. And speaking of, my only 5-star actually on this list is Illuminae, and that is by Amie Kaufman and Kristoff. And the reason that I gave this one a 5 stars is because it totally blew my mind. I was actually talking out loud to myself while I was reading this book, thinking, oh no, oh no, oh no, but really I was saying that all out loud. And it's just many times this book ended up catching me off guard, making me cry, making me laugh, blowing my mind. So I couldn't not give it a 5 stars. I just about gave it a 4-star, but then I thought about it and I was like, it just elicited too many responses from me to not be considered a 5-star. And it was such an interesting format, and it was a whole new take on the genre, and I just couldn't not give it a 5-star. So Illuminae by Amie Kaufman and Kristoff was another book that I read, and that was back in March. The next book is another YA, and that was Everless by Holland. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads just because, again, it didn't completely blow my mind, but I still had a lot of fun reading it. It was kind of like Ever the Hunted. It was a very easy read, but the thing that really got me was the end. I'm not going to go into spoilers. I'm just going to say, if you read this book and you find it sort of going a bit slow or that you want more, everything is worth it for the end of this book. I'm very excited for the next one called, I think, Evermore, and that should be coming out next year. But I am very excited to see where this story goes because the ending just opened up a whole new thing. In the beginning even, it was a whole new concept. Like, I really like the idea. Essentially, premise for this, if you haven't heard me talk about it in my past videos, is time is money. Your life force, your blood is what's going to pay for things. So it's going to pay your rent, it's going to pay for food, it's going to pay for clothes, basically everything. And this girl is living with her father, and her father has been giving up his lifeblood for her, and she wants to return the favor because he's given up enough of his life for her. So she ends up working at an estate where they lived when she was younger, and she works there at Everless to sort of help repay him. And I thought that that was going to be the entire story, but let me tell you, it was not. Yes, so that is Everless by Holland, and I recommend if you want like a light read, but for the ending to open up a whole new thing, pick this one up. The next book is a mystery thriller book, which was actually one of my most anticipated reads for this year, and I was so excited about, and I got really bummed because on release day, none of the bookstores had this in hardcover, and I need to have it in hardcover because the rest of my series is in hardcover. But that is Kelley Armstrong's This Fallen Prey, and that is the third book in the Rockton Thriller series, or the Casey Duncan series, sort of depends on what you want to call it. It goes by both, and it was just, it was everything I wanted. And I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars because I should say, there's a couple of things here and there that I just want more of, that I don't always get with these ones, but it really satisfies me for my mystery thriller needs, and I look forward to these every single year. There's 3 out now, this is the 3rd one. I'm waiting for the announcement of the release date and information for the next one, but it hasn't come out yet, which has me a little bit worried, but it is definitely going to continue, I hope. But basically, I'm not going to tell you too much about this one. I'm going to tell you about the series as a whole. It follows a homicide detective named Casey as she sort of helps her friend get away from a bad situation. And to do this, she discovers that there is a place called Rockton up in the Yukon, which is in Canada for all of you non-Canadians. And it's basically off-grid. People go there to get out of bad situations, or they pay to get out of their current situation. So if they're rich enough, they can get out of anything. What that means is that this place will take pretty much anybody who can pay, and that includes killers and all sorts of bad things. So when Casey, oh, they're vacuuming now. You're gonna hear some vacuuming because I don't want to stop talking. So Casey ends up working as a homicide detective in this town in the Yukon, and it's so good. I recommend this if you like any sort of mystery, thriller, badass female homicide detective with a little bit of romance. Oh, that vacuum's gonna be going for a while. The next book I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, and I picked it up because of the cover and the fact that it seemed like there was going to be some steampunkiness, and it wasn't really steampunk, it was more just clockwork, but that is the Clockwork Dynasty by Daniel H. Wilson. And he also wrote Robopocalypse, I believe it is. I haven't read that yet, but I have heard amazing things about it, and this author is so nice. Like, he and I had a Twitter conversation for a little while, and he just seems super cool and really, really smart too. Like, he knows his stuff. This is a dual perspective book, which actually sort of switches between present day and the 1700s in Russia, and it does it so well. Like, you know how sometimes you get those books that flip between time periods or flip between perspectives and it just doesn't flow? This flows. Like, I couldn't get over how much this flows, and it just sounds kind of weird, but it's really, really well done, I will say that. And basically there is this girl who has sort of always known that there was something different in the world, and she wanted to uncover it based on a story that her grandfather told her. So she ends up going through to become an archaeologist of sorts to find these clockwork creatures, and it flips between her being the archaeologist as well as when the clockwork creatures were really in high power and were most used, because in modern day they're very hard to come by. You don't really see any, they're all just broken down basically. But as she's going through her little digs and such, she ends up uncovering quite a big thing, and then just chaos ensues. But it's so good. If you want some sort of clockwork, takes place within, the present day takes place within like a few days, which is what's happening in this book, and then the past, like the 1700s, takes place over a few decades. But it's so good. I really recommend this book. Like I said, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I'm definitely going to be picking up more from this author, and I really, really hope he makes a sequel to this, because I think that he could, and I just don't want it to be a standalone. I want to continue on with these characters because I just think that they're so awesome. And they are still vacuuming. Okay. The next book I received as an ARC from HarperCollins Canada, but they talked about this in their Frenzy Presents Spring Summer Preview for 2018, and I got super excited about it because it was sort of described as historical fiction but reads like a fantasy, and that just had me hooked because I love historical fiction and I love fantasy. Now this book doesn't come out until June, so that is next month now. So if you are able to get your hands on it, please do, because it is such a good read. It's The Bird and the Blade by Bannen, and when I was reading this, I almost didn't think that it should be considered a YA. I feel like it's borderline like adult fantasy almost, because there are some mature themes that happen in it, especially like nearer to the end and at the end, so just be aware for that. And there is some cussing like I want to do right now. But if you're not aware of this story, it basically follows along the same idea as the opera Turandot, which I had heard of, but I wasn't fully familiar with the storyline. So reading this was so good. I can't even take myself seriously right now because of the vacuum. I think they might be done. If you're not familiar with the opera Turandot, this is a novel that takes place in the 13th century during the reign of the Mongol Empire, as well as the Great Khan. And it follows a girl who is enslaved to one of the Khans of the empire, and it's basically her story following along with this family. And it also sort of flips back and forth between, like, it's always her perspective, but it also flips back and forth between times in her life. And it's also another one that does it very, very well, kind of like Clockwork Dynasty. Like, everything that is happening relates to what is going on in her past and in her present. And I will just say, this book ended up ripping out my heart. And I will also say that if you like book boyfriends, I think you're gonna have a new book boyfriend with this book. Yeah. I did do a full review on Goodreads, so again, check out down below for that, which might be a little bit more coherent because I keep getting distracted by that vacuum. I just want to say, get this book when it comes out in June because I think it is worth it, and I think that you should read it. And the last book on my list, I also gave a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads because I read it in a night, and as I was reading it, I just kept freaking out. And it just kept twisting and turning, and all the twists and all the turns. I've never questioned myself so much reading a book than I have reading this book, and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to read the other day, and I just stared at my TBR shelf, and this book had been on there since it released, and that is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. So I figured because the sequel to this book, Legendary, comes out at the end of this month, I figured that I should probably get on that and read this. And oh my god, yes, I said twists and turns. It has so many twists and turns. Like, you think you know what's going on, but you don't know what's going on. And the whole premise of Caraval is that it's a game and don't trust anything that's happening in it, but they blur those lines so much. And it's just, it is such a good story. Like, I really recommend it. Like I said, it's a 4 out of 5 stars for me, and I'm very excited that the next book is going to be coming out soon, and I think that it takes place with a different character's perspective. So I don't think that the main character in this one is the main character in the sequel, which I'm a little bit worried about because I liked Scarlet, who is the main character in this book, and I want to know more about what's going on with her, but I think it's going to be someone else's perspective, so we'll see how that goes. But if you don't know what Caraval is about, like I said, it's a game, but basically there are these two sisters who have always wanted to see this Caraval and witness its magic and just escape within it, and they end up being able to go. So there's a whole series of events even surrounding them being able to go, but once they're there, her sister, Scarlet's sister, goes missing, so she has to play the game in order to save her sister. And as she's playing the game, so much stuff happens, and it's really, really good. I recommend it if you want like a mind-bendy, twisty, question everything that you believe in kind of book, then I would recommend this. And also, the cover is super pretty too, and I love it so much, and I can't believe I sat on this so long. Like, I picked it up the day it released, and I hadn't read it yet, which blows my mind, but that's what happens to me sometimes. I find a book that I want and I buy it, even though I know I won't get to it anytime soon, just because I don't want to forget about it. But yes, so if you do get the chance before Legendary comes out, read Caraval by Stephanie Garber. And of course, now that I am done filming, the vacuuming is also done. But thank you so much for sticking with me through that, because I'm pretty sure you could hear a lot of that noise. But let me know also in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, if any of these books are now being added to your TBR, or what you think as a whole. If you do want me to go into any of these books into a bit more detail, maybe not to the extent of a review, because I don't think I'm fully the best at reviews, but at least a book chat where I can tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, things like that, let me know, because there are so many things that I could say about with those books. So be sure to like this video if you did, share with your friends, and subscribe for more, because I do put out new videos every weekend, and I'm also doing some bonus videos, so be sure to click that bell icon to be notified anytime that I put out new videos. And until next time, keep reading.